All right, we're live. Welcome back to AJC and the Web Devs with another episode with Christopher Burns. What's up, Chris?
Hey, I would say it's only been 2 weeks, but so much has happened in such a short time.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks and you got a new name. Tools totally different, it sounds like. So that's
Yeah.
really exciting. I'm excited to hear what you've done in the meantime. So why don't you talk about what you built and kind of where you've changed it up since last time?
Yes. Currently, I can hear myself super bad, so I must have a tab somewhere where
Oh,
YouTube is playing something. What the hell? Where's this tab? I can't even see this tab.
Do you have another window open somewhere?
No. What the hell? This is something I should be more prepared for. Found
Got
it.
it?
Yeah, there we go. I can actually not hear myself now.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
so much has changed since we last spoke. And as we know, when I last jumped on and we had a stream, it was very much, day zero. Well, it was more like day 4 or 5 of this idea and building it out. 2 weeks later, we have cooked a lot. There's been a lot of changes, and at the time, I was referring to the project called Better Events because I was going to go down this event system. That's still really relevant, but there's some things that we need to tackle first. And then it was this thing of consent was one of the bigger things that kept coming up. So it was like Anthony said, "Why don't you name it Bear Consent?" I was like,
No, you said that. I said better cookies.
"Bear Cookies." There you go. I was like, but it's not all about cookies. And so I went on a Silicon Valley, what they call it, naming
You went on a
quest,
vision quest.
a
You
vision
went out to the
quest.
desert for 3 days.
Yeah, no. Now it involves speaking to DeepSeek about coming up with names
Yeah,
instead of
so how'd
drugs.
you arrive on Koroflow? What does it mean?
So Koroflow, it's basically I had some criterias. Learning from lessons in the past was like Everfund was like a super easy name. It made sense. It was 2 English words put together. But one of the things about that was like we didn't have the .com earlier on, so we had to spend X amount of money to buy the .com. And I was like, it really sucks when you have to spend X money to buy the .com, but then the renews are like £20. So I had basically like 3 criterias. Could get the .com, could get the social media handles, and there was like no active trademarks under the name. So all 3 of them things put together are quite hard to find
Yeah,
a
no, I
name.
know.
So I basically started going down this path of like, give me Asian inspired words, Polynesian inspired words, Spanish inspired words, and just start mashing them together. And I had a whole list of like ones that I found, and Koroflow was like the one that kind of clicked in the end. It makes, you could say it's meaningless at the same time of, a true brand person would say, well, it's always been there. Kuro in Japanese is the heart, and flow is obviously like the ocean and flowing of data. So it's actually like the heart and the flow of, consent of the person and the flow of that consent. It's like, you
Very
can
zen.
attach whatever you want to it. I just think it's like something unique, something I got, could just pick it and get on with it. And I think something that's been so important to me since founding Everfund has been taking all them lessons and going a step further and really refining it. What is then biggest refinements is communication, talk about it, get people understanding it even before you fully built it. That's like number one rule. I could go out today and build a dashboard and a whole API service for this that we're going to discuss more. But it is kind of a waste of time as well, because if nobody wants the first thing that we're going to talk about today and build out, you're almost wasting your time. So very much that's like lesson one of how we've got to hit here in 2 weeks, and we'll go into it. But the second thing that's massive is make something people want, make something you want, and that's really drove me super hard in the last 2 weeks. And let's start with looking over the website, because obviously when we met last time, there wasn't a website yet. There was, but it was very, very simple.
So did you start over totally from scratch with this new site?
Yeah, so this is actually quite interesting. So how it actually is, it's Fuma Docs. So Fuma Docs is running the whole website in Next.js. And then basically I've attached custom components to the homepage of the marketing website, so they leave a space for it. So I built out these components for it. And you can say, wow, that actually looks pretty good. I didn't do it completely from scratch. One of the first things that I did with this all was, look at inspiration, what is out there for components, understanding of websites. And a website that got released recently, I think is really, really helpful, is called 21st Dev. And basically it's got just a bunch of components and
NPM for design engineers.
Yeah, that's the fancy title that people want to call themselves these days, design engineers. So I looked through and I started taking components and customizing them differently. So like, for example, this one, you can see that it's attached to a scroll. When on my website, it's completely automatic. So, it's taking these examples people have made and tweaking them to what fits best for your website. So that's what I've done in the last. This was actually yesterday's release. So yesterday, this website got released. Yeah. So
why did you move away from ShadCN?
So this is actually, I think, a really interesting subject, and I think ShadCN is super useful. But currently on this marketing website, Fuma Docs has its own ShadCN inspired color scheme and system. So I tried to basically match their styles and just keep it as low down as possible, because I could add a different style sheet, like CSS style sheet for the homepage, but then it feels like you're starting to get very complicated with collisions in CSS namespaces. So at this stage, I thought just put it in their style and basically build it out. What's nice is if I change the Fuma Docs theme, it will automatically change it on the homepage as well. So it's quite nice that way. So obviously, since we last spoke, I did have some documentation put together, but it was not at the stage that it's at now. So what's really exciting now is, for example, if I just clear this, what we have now.
I'm still just seeing the homepage, by the way.
Why is that frozen? Weird. I don't know why that froze. What we have now is 2 weeks ago, I very much took the hypothesis that people would want to put a cookie banner on their website themselves and use pre-built ShadCN components that they would copy and paste into their code base to customize how it looks and everything. And I was really lucky to have a first customer, first user. And basically, I put this implementation onto their website. They had changed the style of the Shadcn, so it obviously didn't quite work correctly. So we had to make all these changes. And then their CTO looked at their PR and just was like, there's too much code. Like, there's just too much code. And I really thought about that and thought, but this is what people want. People want Shadcn. Give the people what they want. Everyone wants Shadcn. So I thought, and started taking it back a level and thought, actually, what about looking at how Clerk does components? Thinking about how they create the component tree and then allow you to inject buttons or different props at different levels to customize the theming. So that's the path that I started to go down, and we'll talk about it more. But it basically right now, we rebuilt in 2 weeks a whole Clerk Elements like system from scratch for a cookie banner that you see here in the corner, but also a full consent dialog where it's completely styled by default. So what you're looking at here is basically 5 lines of code in the code base now to provide all of this functionality. Pretty impressive.
It's pretty sweet, yeah.
What I wanted to do was to say, hey, but what about if you want to completely customize it? You don't want them colors. You want your completely own colors. So that's where I started adding the deeper primitives in the code and in everything and allowing that customizability. And you see that this is where this whole 2 options have now came in, where we were going with Shadcn like components, but then it felt very much like adding too much code to their interfaces. So let's remove that, and then all of that React Elements library is backed onto the headless core. So obviously, something that's really important to me, and I did a lot of research. We spoke about it before, no end. Is multi-framework support, and that comes with a lot of challenges. Even 2 years later, since we spoke about it, mitosis came a long way, but it's still not quite there. So I thought I'll build the headless core. So if we want, we can build adapters into a view layer, a svelte layer, a solid layer, or just the React components at this stage. So that is a hell of a lot of talking so far. But what we can actually see is this is it. This is now the implementation layer is as simple as 3 imports. We can talk about that a little bit more. Laying out the consent provider and then adding the cookie banner and the consent manager dialog and closing the provider. And then that is it. It will wrap your whole app with this consent management solution. Pretty cool.
And so the themed cookie banner, that just kind of gives you some Tailwind styles, it looks like.
It's actually better than that. We can go into this and discuss. And actually we can go over it. So what I wanted to take this time today and talk to you about was obviously this is something that I'm going to be publicly launching later this week. But that sounds weird because I'm talking about it publicly now.
And I mean, Twitter already.
Yeah. I mean, just like saying I have confidence to put this out there. It's already out there. You can download it today. But like we're going to talk about today, there's some things that I just want to hit a better level on, even though what you've seen already is pretty incredible. Things like, and you're gonna laugh, but test suite, I really need to get a test suite in there to make sure that everything is working as expected before I want to publicly push it. Why? Because to me,
We all
and
make
maybe
sure
this
it
is,
works and not
yeah,
gonna
this is
break.
me showing my maturity in the world is like, yeah, people who are installing this onto their website and say they don't update the dependencies very often, I want to make sure that it's a solid version that they're installing at that stage. Um, so we have basically so far, we have, a quick overview saying how to get started, what you can customize, and then obviously each separate component and how they work. And what you were saying a second ago, to go back to, was styling. So this is actually one of the biggest things and the reason why I want to put a test suite together, because having confidence in the uh, customization of the components is a complicated matter, no matter the doubt, because obviously if the surface area, so we can look at this here, if the surface area was just this, I could put a test together by saying they just changed the title and they changed the description. Really, really simple. But
Mhm.
actually, what you can also do is an actual decomposed version at the primitive level. So you see you have root, card, header, title, description, and then all the things that follow it. And for example, you may say, I've already got a button style and a card style and a header style. So I want to use my own components in them. I want to use my fancy button for accept. So that's when you need to make sure that this accept button component, one, accepts and renders correctly a child button, say a custom button. Two, attaches the styles properly. Say if you was to add a class name at this level or a style tag, it passes it through correctly. Three, like merging the styles, because as we show here, each one of these components has a style theme tag. And what you can do with that is doing this, where you can basically attach CSS. So you could attach a CSS module for a completely custom style. You can, it's not actually here, but you could put class names in. So you can put a class name there. You can use React object, style object. So if you want to just customize the style, you can do that completely from the top level, or you can do it at each level down, and it also needs to merge the styles together. And that is obviously a complicated task. With the layer on top of that is these components are obviously providing their own CSS as well, and you want to be able to disable all of the CSS that we provide for a completely custom style. So when you go into, say, cookie banner, when you go into style, oh yeah, sorry, I was on cookie banner, but
All
you
right,
can
yeah,
see
I see.
here, yeah, you can pass in a custom class or a React object, a style object, or both, or completely
So if you
the.
do both, how does it know which one to take precedence?
So that's the browser. So what it will do is it will merge them both. So it will put the style CSS into the DOM, and also the class name, and then it's your browser. I'm pretty sure the style gets overrides the class names. So there's that as well. So, and the other thing is this thing here is disabling default styles. Say if you want to provide a completely custom style, then you can do by removing all of the CSS that I've added to these. So it completely is like customized for allowing the end user not necessarily to have to worry about the DOM structure or the rendering, but to be able to put in their own CSS or their own button, or you know what I mean, trying to do it as easy as possible, and actually creating this system is really trivial and complicated at the same time, because you're just merging class names or styles. But what happens when you're merging class names on multiple levels? For example, you declare theme at the top. So you say cookie root banner has these tailwind class names. But then, you then customize it and you put a class name at this level as well. Is it going to ignore one? Is it going to ignore the other? Is it going to merge them both together? You know what I mean? It's like that whole layer of complexity. And if you then use a theme tag at this level, you need to merge the context higher as well. So that's why I need to build a test suite for this, is to really make sure that every single primitive component has and is working as expected at each level, as merging CSS, merging class names, removing the default styles, showing the default styles, using a custom button as child. There's so much that comes into this, but I honestly think this is like, not that this is like home run on day one, but this is like as far as you can go in providing the best cookie banner out there. You know what I mean? That you can't beat this level of composability. So yeah, it's been a good long 2 weeks actually programming this out, and obviously we can look through some code and actually
Why
talk
don't you
about.
could you spin up like a Create React app or just a fresh like React project and then like
Oh,
install it in? So I feel like 'cause you were talking about the docs, and so like someone who comes to the docs, if they just want to try it out, they might not necessarily want to like throw it into their actual project. They kind of want to just play around with
you
some
know
of the code.
what? I will admit I've not done that yet.
We don't have to do it
It's
now, but I think it would be
no,
interesting.
no. What it's on the website. It's on this Next.js website, but actually, that's something that I wanted to do. For example, I know it works in Next.js.
Mhm.
I have confidence that it works in Vite. I have pretty much zero confidence in Astro.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. These things I need to test out in build. But if we actually, was going to build this, and sure, we can do. And let's say, how do people do it these days? Do they get a bolt?
That's a good question. I mean, I would still just like use the Vite React template.
There we go. So let's stack blitz.
Yeah, and
Let's spin
that would
one.
be a good thing also if you had a link to something where you kind of show a bunch of the options and a stack blitz. And right now we're just seeing the docs. Also, I'm not sure if you're trying to show something else.
Yes, I'm just setting up a stack blitz. So, let's swap this.
Because I know your
over.
last one, didn't you have the code was like already rendering actually in the docs?
Yeah, so I actually
You
started
should make
experiment. I
make your
actually
font bigger.
yeah, I actually experimented with what's it called? Let me put it up. There's something I actually started experimenting with. Let me show you. So this is called Kibo UI, and they have a
Use the chat
component.
CN.
Yeah, it's similar. They actually have a component that allows you to use Sandpack. So they've wrapped Sandpack in like a easy component that you
That's
can
basic code
basically,
sandbox, right?
yeah, in your code. And I actually got it working and have a preview. Let me actually show you. So I actually this was actually something I we're looking at today. So let's show you this. So this has this code sandbox in. So you can see that basically it has the code.
Cube up your font up. You can make your window a little wider also.
Oh yeah. There you go.
There we go.
So you can see that it has the code. Yes, it's formatted badly, but basically it almost works, but I need to work out why it doesn't. And this is just something I need to put more time into. But
Okay.
this is
Cool.
like almost like what I see as in like that perfect version, because you can actually like if I just take out this and look, you can actually change it to just be like div. But the problem that I have with it right now is it feels laggy. There you go. It feels laggy, and I don't know why. Like, if it's slow to build, I need to do more research into it. But as a concept, it's super cool. Being able to just like spin the code up in the project, and it just works. But let's see if we could put the provider in. So yeah, the provider works. Let's try the cookie banner. Ah, there you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, something working. That's interesting.
It's you see that it butchers the class, the styling a little, but that's because I think it's got no default normalization on it. But as we can literally see, as an example, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Like being able to literally run the code in the actual browser and it just works. So that's actually something I've been experimenting on today. But we'll go back to this and go to our trusty package.json. And then what we'll do is we'll add Koroflow /elements, and we're on beta 8, I think. 1 beta 8. I think that's the one we're on. Let's see if that renders it out.
You might have to reinstall.
Nah, we'll just see. We'll go to the next stage. And then just like we follow in the introduction, you basically would take them, and then you would put the provider in here. and then let's add provider, and then you put the cookie banner, and also the consent manager dialog, and then save that, and then let's do it this way just to make sure. npm install Koroflow elements. To be fair, I've not used much Stack Blitz as a whole. I think
I
it's
haven't used it in a while. It should work though if it works just like in a React project, because usually stuff only gets weird if you're doing like backend kind of stuff.
Yeah, oh no, it'll 100%. I'm pretty sure it'll work. That is something that needs to be better. So there you go. First bug: the imports are wrong on the docs. Why not render out? Let's move it into
you should probably put it in the app.
Yeah, I don't know how these things work. I'm an XJS guy. I don't know React. I only know Next.
The other thing you could try if this doesn't work is okay. I was gonna say just getting rid of the app file in general and doing it straight in main.tsx.
Boom.
Looks like it's working.
Yeah, there you go. Let's reboot it. So, where's the page?
You can try opening it in its own window. If you click the pop-out button.
There you go. So you can see here straight away that actually it's working, but it's missing something. And that is also something else missing from them initial docs is you need to import the style.css. I think it's global. I think. I'll need to check if it's global. See, this is a perfect example why just trying to run through the docs you write and act like an idiot gets you there. So let's check. Globals. I was wrong. Globals, not global. There you go. So nice. Just like that, it completely works. There's some major rendering things. So what this actually is the page's styles are overriding it. So as we can see, there's a tag here. So if I just remove all of these styles,
you also have the app.css styles.
Yeah. No, all of them were fine. So let's refresh that. Why? So this is it's a good example. For example, what happens if the website doesn't have a global a normalizer on?
When you say normalizer, what do you mean by that?
So basically,
Is that like a CSS reset?
Yeah. Each browser has slightly different defaults, and the normalizer basically fixes that, if that makes sense.
Makes it so that the styles actually look the same on each browser.
Yeah.
Or as much as possible.
So it works now. The only problem is because this is in an iframe, I don't know how to reset the cookies very easily because my browser doesn't work like it does. So we can actually manually do it. I do have a hook in Koroflow. So let me just pull up the docs. So for testing purposes. So browse file docs.
So right now it's not showing up because you had already selected something.
Yeah. Because I selected a consent option, it does what it should do and gets out of the way. So let's just make this a little bit better. Let's put page reset component.tsx, and then do a const, and then do a reset. So basically, obviously, when you're debugging, there's actually a dev tool that would do this easier if I just installed it.
Which one?
A dev tool that I made for Koroflow. So
right, yeah. And you were showing this last time, right?
Yeah.
Or a similar thing.
I have not worked on it in like 5 betas, so it could not actually work. So I'll just go with this method for now, and then we'll come back to that. So I think we want headless, and then why is that?
You have to export it, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't.
You spelled export wrong.
I know I did. Oh, it's wrapped. Oh, that's why. Why is it syntax like completely?
Well, you're not returning it.
Yeah. Actually, I can just do handle reset. So I don't know why the syntax highlighting.
Oh, you're not doing an import from. You're missing the after consent manager.
That's it. Yeah. I just saw that myself. I was like, there we go. So now, so the reason we need to have this as its own component is basically because you can't obviously call the hook at this level. So it needs to be a little bit deeper. And then we should be able to just pull that in. There we go. There we go. So we see that we can re-pull it back up. But as we can see, there's no default style. So if I just put up a So if I just go on to npm and just pull together this, so if I just open another tab and then do npm add, I swear I have cursed browsers. Nothing ever just wants to work as expected.
I would just kill the dev server, yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So that's because this is not on dev 8. I think it's only on dev 1. Like literally, as I said, if not, we'll just remove that for now. Use it. There we go. So then we can just go into app and do import modern normalize. So obviously, if you use, I don't know why I keep saying that. If you use Tailwind or any of them kind of systems, it default adds one of these is in terms of the tool, in terms of the style sheet. So now, hopefully, when it reloads, it should look a little bit better by default. But it's an interesting question to say, should I provide them browser resets in my code? You can see, yeah, there you go. It's reset them now. So it's a little bit better. But still some things are not quite right. You can see the border. More things to look into. But this is the thing about the beta, is working this out. And actually, this gives perfect opportunity to actually talk about the style system. So as you can see, I actually took the method of writing pure CSS for the components. So each one of these is actually pure CSS. There's no Tailwind. It's just Lightning CSS, compiling them into a style sheet. I know, hardcore, right?
Well, it's probably going to make it easier when you want to incorporate other frameworks that aren't React.
Exactly. And what you can see is, soon as I provide a no style tag, so this is what we're talking about, no style, you can see that it completely has stripped all the class names. But there you go. You see that? Not all of them. There's some, it's like I said, somewhere in this style system, it's not quite working right. I know it. And the only way I'm going to get to the bottom of it is by writing tests. And I'm a mature person to say that. Because if I go around trying to hit it like a duck or whatever, I'm just gonna blow it somewhere. You know what I mean? So I just need to just write some tests and work out that way. But what you can see then as well is, like we just said about the theme. So we can then pass in the object. So let's just give this a reload to get rid of the dialog. So what we can see here is, what we can do is we actually like okay. So you can control it like this. So we can say overlay, and then you can see that you have multiple options. Base class name should actually not be there. Base class name is them default class names. So if you do a no style, base class names get removed, but leaves the class names. So if you then do like BG red 500, obviously this isn't going to work because Tailwind's not installed. You can then see, for example, when we go to the overlay, when we go to the overlay, we can see that it's added BG red 500. Or you could then do a style where you say background red. And then that puts background red there, but obviously it's not showing because there's no insert of 1, I think it is.
What is inset?
It basically says wrap it. I can't remember the class at the top of my head, so we'll do this way. A bit
Used
more
for positioning an element within its containing element. Shorthand property that sends values for the top, right, bottom, and left properties simultaneously.
Yep. Huh. There we go. So
some new CSS today.
There we go. So we can say, oh, this has an index of 2. And then we can say cookie card root. We can say style the index 5.
Now it's red for sure.
Yeah. But that should be, let's put background white. Put it in quotes. Why isn't this going through? Oh, it's because the position relative display block. There we go. So you can see how this style system starts coming into play, if that makes sense, where you can basically completely style the DOM however you want. But what actually would be crazy, I've not fully tried this, so let's see if this actually works. This will be crazy if this works. So is if you want to do something like this, where you do a cookie accept button, and then you could do say, just like we did before, you go background red. There you go. So you can see we can override. But once you go, oh, I want to keep the rest of your CSS, but I actually want to do that cookie, I want to do that button myself. You should be able to pass the no style tag in, and it should work. It doesn't work. Whap, whap. There you go. See, this is the point of what I'm talking about, like writing this kind of system to work on this like multi-layer of complexities. It's actually like super, I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's actually super complicated. You know what I mean? Because you've got to do this whole merging and resolving of the styles to actually like remove the style. So what that should do is that should remove all of them, and it should look like that with the no style.
Right. Yeah.
If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So that's something that obviously I need to fix. I also have an idea to put like the component in here as well. So you could do like button test, and it would pass it down as well. But that's, I don't know if that's something I'd want to do.
Component has A instead of an E in it.
Yeah. This is not actual code, but you know what I mean? Like JSX, like you could put like a JSX element. So if you wanted to render just a custom buttons, but leave everything else exactly the same, you could. So yeah, super, super cool. I'm going to have to look deeper into normalizing these styles. And this is a good example of that. But for an interface, what do you think? Do you think it's pretty small, pretty slim?
Yeah, no, it seems pretty good. I think that what I'm just thinking right now is you have a setup where it kind of comes with styles unless you tell it no style. But what if you were to do the opposite? Like it kind of comes with no styling if you were to just do the components and then you can choose to add in this like the default styles.
So vice versa. Yeah, so that's what you would do at basically that's what I was saying about you would do it this way where you would just set these. But the other idea is to allow you to do this as well. So if I just pull this, for example. So pull this down. So let's pull this into the code. So allow you to do this. Yeah, this needs slightly more work, but let's just actually do it this way to show you. Let's just remove these. This was actually something I wanted to get some feedback on, because so far this whole interface has been, just done by myself. Obviously, feedback, but actually, what makes so now you do like this, and we have exactly no root. Does not have root. Huh. No classes, but let's just, I don't want to just pass through this just for demo purposes. What you could do, and this is what I was talking about, that normalization is do things like this, where you could also pass no style in at this level and the class names at this level, or the styles at this level as well. So allowing you to do that to customize it. So if you want a decomposed version, then you could do this version. So if you wanted to have all the components be the way that I've defined, you can do, but then say actually just this one has no style, or all of them have no style. Something else you can do is like take the cookie button and you can do this, for example. So you can do, let's just define the cookie button. Obviously, it will crash because it's not defined in the component. See, this is that thing where I was saying about some things are not quite set up properly because it's asking you to put in the theme key. So this is where you shouldn't need to do this. The theme key it's already being in the component, but this is how it does that matching to the style array. So what you could do is something like this, where you can use your own primitives to wrap the button as well. So if you wanted a slightly different button, then you can do. So yeah, trying to explain this theming system, it's quite complicated. You know what I mean? But trying to give as much power to the end user, I think, is really important. I guess one of my first questions that I have, Anthony, is purely down to is this. So let's just define a new file. So right now, let's just take the typical version of what you need. Right now, you need these 4 imports, right? Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Would it actually be better if it was like this, in your opinion? Like that? Do you think that would be better? As in one import statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think the second one is simpler conceptually. I guess my question is, would it make a difference for things like tree shaking and bundle size and stuff like that?
Yep. Yeah. And how it allows you to do the parsing of the different bits. So if you want it as the root or thingy. So if you wanted to do the namespace version, you need to do it like this. So this is where it gets complicated. So let's just take this as like pseudocode cookie banner. If you do import if you do import cookie banner, obviously it's just pseudocode from / cookie banner, right? That returns the singleton version of it, the complete version, right? But then if you do import that as cookie banner from, that then says, oh, you are installing the composable version. You know what I mean? Or you do import cookie banner root from XXX, and then you know what I mean? It's that thing where just basically how the imports are done changes the components that come out. And I don't like it right now. I actually think it's really confusing. You know what I mean? Like if you want the composable version or the built-in version, it starts getting like really confusing to me, if you know what I mean. Because this syntax is very much like, it's not illegal, but it feels.
I pretty much never do import star.
Yeah, it feels like dirty to use the namespace import. So it's like these two feel better, right? But then the cookie banner, there's that classic saying that's like the 2 hardest things in computer science is naming and caching.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like caching, naming, but it's like one of them things. It's like, this is the singleton all in one, when this is the composable root. But but how do you do this well? Because right now, obviously, you have 3 different imports because they're being tree shaken from 3 different folders, if that makes sense. A headless folder, a consent manager folder, and a cookie banner. And you could merge them down, but then you know what I mean? It's like, what's the best developer experience? And
because you could also have them be like each of their own npm package even.
Yeah, exactly. So like the current method, it feels like, and what feels worse, right, is this one here. Is like under this logic that works, but then as soon as you go for the consent dialogue, it's different, you know, because consent dialogue falls into two methods. It falls into consent dialogue and consent dialogue widget. And the reason why is the dialogue sits directly on the page. Sorry, the widget sits directly on the page. The dialogue is obviously a pop-up. So technically, these should be like that. You know what I mean? To actually match the same classification as this one. But then, you know what I mean? It starts feeling very much like bundle hell. So it's something that I need to put more time in and work out the right solution. But you know what I mean? I don't want it to feel like bundle hell, but I want it to feel like, oh, it makes sense how they're laid out and positioned. That's like one of the last problems I've got to figure out is that and the test the styling configs and making sure everything combines together correctly. But yeah, you know,
Is it possible for you to make kind of all these work if you just bundle them in like various ways?
Sure, 100%. But then the problem that I think with that is
Maintain them all.
Maintainability. Also, when you're going to put it on your docs, which is the preferred method? You know, is it better to
say is?
Exactly, but is it better to just say there's one method to do it?
I think so, yeah, for sure.
and hide the other ones, be like, you could do it that way, but they're more like hidden paths, or just not even bundle it that way and just be like, it is this way, or it's no way. You know what I mean? And technically, I think you could do it with the namespace route just across the board, but then name the complete component like cookie banner dot singleton or something like that. But then that feels kind of dirty to put into your JSX. Oh, I want the all-in-one version, so I put cookie banner all-in-one instead of just cookie banner. You know what I mean? So it's like these feel like stupid questions, but if you're trying to go for like not adoption, but like you are, like I've been speaking to you about this issue, and it's like, which one's the right one? And for me to go, all of them work, is not the right answer. Which one is the most logical, easy to understand, and also, I think something that isn't quite as easy to know as well is type inference. When you're using these slash namespaces, VS Code, I think, has a harder time picking up the imports. So if you was to put in the import, sorry, if you was to put in the code, and then it would say, oh, that's from XXX package. When I think you're using, instead of, if you had all of them in just slash elements, it would find it quite easy. But when you're doing it in like a more high level way, I think it then starts struggling, because obviously namespaces are whatever you want to name it. So you don't have to name it cookie banner. You could name it something else, because you're saying export everything as this variable name. So obviously VS Code struggles to pick that up. And I think that's a worse experience for someone who is like me, who never, if I'm looking at something, I never copy or paste the imports. I always just copy the code in and get VS Code to give me the imports for them. You know what I mean? So it's one of them things where it's like, the current method is something that I'm not happy on. But
what about how, like last time we were talking about how with ShatCN you would run a command and it would kind of just like throw the code in your project? You could have something like that also, right?
Yeah, so you can actually use ShatCN for that even now without actually like putting mass amounts of components into your code base, just being like insert into the right pages. it's
Just like
something that I
Astro
want to
too. They have all those add commands, or Redwood, had this, where you just run commands and it would do like a quick code mod for you.
Exactly. It's something that I'm thinking about. But it's also like 5 lines of code. That extent,
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah, I
run a
mean,
code
I would
module.
just go to the docs. I would copy paste the component and then throw it in, and just however the docs say to do it is how I would do it. Yeah.
And the thing is, this is something to also think about. Is like it's really cool providing this theming engine, but how many people are just going to stick the default version in and be like, done, walk away? You know what I mean?
Well, I think the ultimate would be if you could put it in and it would be able to figure out kind of what the styles of your project already are. Like you've already styled a button and stuff like that. If it could figure out how to inherit the styles that are already in your project without having to write the custom styles again in the component.
CSS
I'm sure that's
doesn't work
probably
like
super
that.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. If you had it, to be fair, how I've actually built the button is to be, is it uses a lot of CSS variables. So all of the styles that the predefined styles that I've wrote, you can actually change all the colors by just CSS itself. So you can actually override the button color, button roundness, button size purely in CSS variables. So you don't actually even need to do it in React. You can do it like in a framework. You can do it in pure CSS as well. So it's that thing where it's actually a super hard problem. It's like you say to yourself, I want people to be able to compose this and have and feel like it exactly feels like their app. But then it gets to that point is where is it getting too hard, and where do you start putting limitations in to be like recursiveness? It gets super complicated. You know, like we're saying, you have the theme at the top level, but what about defining the theme in one of the child roots or deeper and then trying to merge up? It's like, no, you either put it in the root level or you style the class names at each level down. And having all of them merge and inherit, like, say if you was to put class names in at a lower level and then you put the no style at the top level, that needs to be inherited all the way down. So it's like, super actually
This is reminding
complicated.
me of what people used to always say about like Bootstrap. Like it comes with all these pre-built components and styles, but if you want to change it, it's just like super complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. This isn't Bootstrap because you can change it. That's the thing. It's actually super easy to change it because I provide the no style flag. It's the middle ground where it's like, I don't want to no style the whole app, the whole component. I want to no style just the buttons so I can put my custom button colors in. You know what I mean? And you're like, you want to allow them to do that, but also not like have to write 50 new lines of code. Because I think the one of the big reasons that I set out to do this like theming object is because I didn't want to say it's this simple component if you just want to use everything how it is. But as soon as you want to customize like the class name of that accept button, you now need all of this boilerplate to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you want to just be able to say, I just want a new class name at this level and still have that super simple singular component. I feel like it's big brain thinking. It's too much big brain thinking.
You should,
and it's like,
you should talk to Travis because he's super deep into CSS and he built the whole Bedrock layout thing. So I imagine at the very least he would have ideas in this space of how to do some of this stuff. I would guess out of any of the people I know, like he was a most CSS wizard I can think of.
Yeah, and I think to be honest, most of it's done. It's just like the thing that's happening right now is collision in terms of the context, and that's something that I need to iron out. But that's why I need to write tests to make sure I can whack them all in the right direction instead of just like all over the shop. And because obviously you want to have this really I can actually pull it up. You
What
can see
library
how.
would you use to test? Would you use like a React testing library, or would you want make the tests more agnostic?
So I actually already have progress on this because I don't do anything half measures. So ls, let me just go into that. Git check out pr kf.
And
Yeah,
you're
let me
not
actually
sharing
pull it
your
up.
screen. I'm sure you.
Yeah, no, I'm just pulling it up first. Sorry. Instead of just like put it up. So KF18. So KF18. So okay, I'll pull up my screen. So where is my tab? Share screen. Sorry.
Very good. No, this is cool. I think it's really interesting. Like it's like you said, it's very different from what you had last time. I feel like just
Yeah,
because
this is
last
like
time
a
it feels like you were really leaning into chat CN, where now it's like this whole different kind of system where it's more of like a headless component type thing.
Yeah. So let's pull this up. So how I've so this is actually what we were just talking about. So you can see the import layer. So how it actually renders out right now is that's where you see it basically is exporting each star. So that's how you pull them in. And then what's actually really exciting is this uses rslib to do the compiling instead
So
of.
what is that exactly? I've heard of it, but I really don't know.
So RS build, RS pack, and RS lib are like this alternative. I think they're made by ByteDance, who make TikTok alternatives to Webpack. And RS lib is their like simple utility library to compile a library, because I was using TS up and it's just not fun. Kits actually wrote like a tweet about it and was like, I've wasted
TS
12
up.
hours. Yeah, was like what people use. So this is where we actually have this componentry. So you see here is where we show the components, and you see you have the cookie banner and some great docs actually. And then you see this is the version. It's really hard to see, but you see this is a singleton, the singleton banner, and then you see this is the CSS. So, like I said before, you can customize the border radius, the ease, the width, the shadows. You can customize the buttons. Literally everything is CSS overrideable. Look at me flexing my CSS skills that are not Tailwind. And you see here, this is where you'll actually find this interesting. I took a method from React Native. So in React Native, you don't have divs. Divs is like doesn't exist
Right.
because
You
divs
have
is
views, right?
you have boxes. And what I had was this is how we purely do a lot of the layout. So when you have a div with a div inside it and you want to style it, but also you want to replace it, I was like, I have 15 of these components that are basically this div style wrapper with a different theme tag and a different class name. I was like, it's just so much repetitive code. And I was like, actually, I could do this easier by creating a generalized class called a component called box, and then allowing you to jump the styles on top of it. So when you look at things like cookie banner title, that's just a box with the base class name, i.e. the default class name, and the theme key to override it with. And you see that that's basically all the way through. And instead of having this having this code in every single one, if that makes sense. So that's how we do each of these. And you see component ref. This is the button. So passing through the button props. And this is what's going to need testing. So like I said, I actually do have some tests set up already. So I will be using Vitest.
Vitest, yeah.
Vitest.
Yeah, I mean it's pronounced Vite, so Vitest maybe. I'm not sure.
Do you mean Vite?
Yeah, right.
Tomato tomatoes, eh?
Yeah, no, totally. Okay, yeah, no, I that's what I was gonna ask if you're gonna use Vitest or like what would be the other one? Like React testing library would be the more React specific one.
So no, I'm not going to use React testing library. I'm using Vitest's new browser testing suite that basically is a wrapper on Playwright. So it will act as an actual user.
Oh, so it says right here, pronounce Vitest. It's the very first thing on the website.
Vitest, yeah. So if this is why I understood. So this is why I didn't go React testing library, because supposedly, and I've not done much research, but basically what I read was React testing library emulates the environment compared to Playwright and Vitess's browser mode that actually renders the component and click through it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So literally, this is what I was also working on today, literally a few hours ago. You can see that it renders the header and pulls the text and says, yeah, it's in the document. So this is what I need to build out basically for every single component. It's like, yes, it renders the children properly. It does the styles properly. It passes this theme key through properly for each of the use cases. And it feels like a ball ache. But if you're going to have this composable model, you expect the style system to work exactly the same on every single component. But as you see currently, it's not. So the no styles don't get stripped out in certain ways. And it's all because how I'm passing use refs between everything and complicated things to allow you to get to this part. And yeah, it's like super easy and it's super not. It's a lot to like start brain killing you in all the different directions. So it's fun. It's fun. And what's also really cool is we use React portals to put things on the top level. So like we also have a flag to disable animation. So if you don't want like that smooth version that we pop up, you can have a disabled animation and it doesn't do it. And this, we can talk over the actual complexities that we were speaking about is this. So this use styles hook is my magnum opus. It's like
magnum opus,
yeah. It's the thing that is powering all the customizability, but it's also so much pain at the same time. So the first element is the theme key. So obviously, as you see that top level, that's what you're going to be overriding, the CSS, the class names, the styles. And obviously, if you pass in class names or styles, you want it to override deeper. This is where I pass in my class names that I created, base class names. And this is where it gets fun, Anthony, because you first have to merge the context, no style, and if they've put no style on the component, then memorize the style from the theme, then memorize the new initial style based upon what you're going to be merging into it so it doesn't change. Then you memorize the context.
Memorize, you mean?
Memorize, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you do this thing where you merge the styles, so like diffing them together. So from the high level theme deeper, and then basically you start returning it, and it is a lot of code. And the reason there's use memos is to stop re-rendering every time a style class name changes. And because when you load the component, it's going to render each hook. The use memos is trying to like freeze it, if that makes sense. So it only does it once instead of like 3-4 times. But yeah, this is my magnum opus. It's complicated, but it is almost there.
Yeah, it seems pretty complicated.
But this is how it's running the ability to do the whole theming element, you know, passing in the theme and everything between, and all the class names that go with it. And I don't know why that's not working anymore. It's probably because it's like that. There you go. Yeah, so complicated, right? But when this is done, it's going to be like, how do I say this? It's like there's never been a cookie banner as customizable as this one without having to build it yourself.
What other cookie banner libraries exist? I'm sure there must be some.
Yeah, so there is loads out there, and they're two different levels. So, for example, one of the classics that we used was called IOBender, where they didn't even tell you how to implement it into React. And then people created their own custom hook systems to put it into React. You have things like Yes Cookie, that's another one. They give basically a hook, and that's it. Like, they don't allow you to customize any of the JSX. So actually having your cookie banner in the JSX DOM is something that no other like mainstream CM consent management platform has actually built out. So this is like the first in that area. Make it good. And there's loads out there, to be honest with you. But everyone is on the journey to find a good one, especially with all the other things that come with it, like the consent dialogue, the controlling of that, and the cookies, and all of them fun things. But literally, we have a mono repo as well, so everything's set up in terms of that. And yeah, super. I think this is all super exciting, but also to like a normal person, like cookie banners and stuff is like the most boring thing ever. But actually, it's something that almost every website needs and wants it to look slightly different and styled to their brand with the least amount of effort, you know? So providing these utilities has been a lot of work over the last 2 weeks. A lot of work.
Yeah, so what's the plan for the next thing?
Yeah.
What's coming up?
Yeah, so what's coming up is obviously providing the cookie consent banners is only half the solution. To technically be completely compliant with GDPR, you need to track that consent as well in a database to say this IP address gave consent on this date. So once I've released the first version of this library fully, and I feel pretty happy outside of like a beta release, that's when I will start building out a cloud solution for tracking that consent externally. So you'll be able to put them 5 lines of code in the code base, put a key into the provider, and leave it as that, and it will handle communicating that consent to a dashboard where you can say, oh, 100% of my users have consented, 50% agree to all, 20% agree to minimum, that kind of stuff. So that's what's coming next. And there's loads of really other exciting things that to build into this space, but I'll leave that there for now, because I don't want to talk about it, but it's a lot to build it in exciting ways, and I'm focused on getting the first version of these elements out and seeing how people react to them, seeing if people implement them, getting it on people's websites before truly deciding the next thing to build after that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we haven't actually shared this yet, so just in case people didn't see it, the main website is Koroflow with a K.com.
Yeah,
And
you've
I think
got
you
the
can find all.
HTTPS. HTTPS.
Oh, whoops.
No, it will redirect you.
There we go.
But it's also all open source right now. You can go on GitHub and literally see all of my mad coding. I've actually.
That's just Koroflow /Koroflow.
Yeah. To be fair, I've actually started putting some GitHub issues together. So I've been.
People can contribute.
Yeah. To actually see the problems and actually look to fix them. Because obviously I know there's things in there that are broken or not quite working right. But instead of just having it in my head, I should actually put them on GitHub issues. And then, if anyone does want to help out or get involved, that they don't need to come ask me what they can help with. They can just comment on an issue.
Your roadmap, it says 2024 for each quarter. It should say 2025.
Does that?
Yeah.
That's GitHub's default roadmap tool. I've not even tweaked it that much. To be fair, that is something I was doing just before this. Oh, in the docs. You're talking about in the docs. Yeah. That needs updating. But yeah, overall, we have almost everything there in terms of this. There's just some more polish that I need to do, make sure that the docs actually work and that the code I'm recommended actually is the right code, as we've seen. Before we started speaking, I said, I want you to look over my docs, help me understand them better. And it was literally treat it as I'm setting up from day one in a bare necessities byte app, and actually,
that's the best way to do it. Yeah, I think
not just look at it and think, yeah, I know what that's doing, because actually the code is wrong. Even though I've glanced at it multiple times, corrected it, it's still wrong. So, do you have any big questions or anything that you actually want to understand about it, or any of the things that the processes I built into it, or anything so far?
I guess just what are the dependencies of it that you're using?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good question, because I want part of me thinks it would be great if I could say 0 dependencies. Yeah, 0 dependencies. How great is that?
That's impossible.
Right? Well, you know, you
Not
can do
possible,
it.
but it just requires so much work that's almost not like it's just kind of
So much
ridiculous.
more work. You know,
There's a
I'm not
reason
going to
why
use
all of these packages have been written in
Jota.
Node and
Like, yeah,
JavaScript world. Yeah.
I'm not going to use a storage solution. I'm going to build my own solution for storage and cookie and pulling the cookies and all these things. So there was that level of like motion is integrated into the banners. That's what does that smooth pop up. And then if you pass the no animation flag, then it uses pure divs. But currently, let's actually pass up let's actually
So you're
just
using
pull.
Radix UI.
Yeah, so it uses Radix UI currently behind the scenes. To be honest with you, I'm not that I'm not sold on it, but I don't know if it's actually compliant enough. And I was started with React Ira, as that's better for
Aria.
accessibility. Yeah,
Yeah.
accessibility. But then I wanted it to get out the door faster, so I switched to Radix and ShadCN like components that were more used. But now that I have everything working, I may look at converting it over to React Ira, because one of obviously the massive things about this is accessibility. I really care
Sure,
about, you know, screen readers and everything catching the consent properly. And obviously, because it's going on someone's website, if someone is using a screen reader and they now can't access the website because the cookie banner is blocking it, you've screwed over a whole user base from
Yeah.
accessing the website. So it's very much something that, you know, I think hard about right now.
Mhm.
But current dependencies internally in the elements, it's actually not that big. I think there's only like 5 or 6 dependencies. There's zoo stand, tailwind variants, motion, lucid react. I think I
What
could
is Lucid
definitely.
React?
It's icons.
Ah,
But I could totally remove that for just 2 SVGs.
yeah.
It's definitely on the list to get rid of. And then the Redux libraries, where I think I could replace them out with default versions. But literally not trying to go for zero dependency, but trying to go for as least as possible in as many areas to keep the bundles as small as possible. Because I think right now the bundle is around 35 kilobytes. You know, is that
Seems
bad?
pretty
Is
good.
that good? Some
I think
people would say
that's
that's
pretty good.
terrible.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, it kind of depends what your frame of reference is.
Yeah, exactly. And just trying to keep it really small, because obviously you're putting it on so many different websites. Trying not to put as much in as possible, I think, is really important. And also, there's that whole paradigm of server side rendering and client side rendering you have to worry about as well. And um, all the fun things that come with that.
Yeah, it
So
seems like right
there's,
now it's all just client side rendered, right?
yeah, except for the widget. The widget can be server-side rendered,
Okay.
because that would be displayed directly onto the page by like default render. So you want to be able to server-side render that when the dialog or the cookie banner obviously gets popped up over the things. So it wouldn't make sense for it to be server-side rendered. But it should be suspensed with a critical tag of like, do this almost straight away. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. We shall see with everything where it goes from here. But yeah, in terms of dependencies, in terms of everything, hell of a lot has been done in 2 weeks. You know, if someone goes
Totally.
back and
It's like a
views,
whole different project almost.
yeah, and also like layer of refinement. I spoke to someone yesterday, and they literally said to me, "It's incredible to see what you've achieved in 3 weeks." I was like, "Yeah, completely by myself." Not that I'm saying I'm like this cracked 10x engineer, because I make mistakes and all these things, but surprisingly, things like AI super helpful.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
You know,
are you using any LLMs in your workflow, or are you using like Copilot
yeah,
or
yeah.
ChatGPT?
So use Cursor. I wouldn't say
Okay.
I'm a biggest user of it. Like, I do use it, but I also use V0 a little bit. I also use Claude by literally just copying the files and pasting them into Claude and be like, help
Dude,
me
that's what I
fix
do,
this.
honestly.
Instead of some fancy VS Code integration. I've also have a context setup in Claude with like all of the major legal documents around
Mhm.
the world to give me some better understanding. But I also don't think it's quite good enough. And something I wanted to talk to you about as well is in like, what is a rag and why do I need it for this? Because I definitely need it for this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's just a way so like what you're kind of doing already, you can give it a bunch of context and it will
but
know
there's only a
what it
limit
is.
to the context that you can give Claude
Yeah,
or
well, RAG you
ChatGPT.
can put more stuff in, and you're not reliant on just the context window of the LLM, or you can go full on with like a vector database. And like, how many documents are we talking here? Like, how much, like, roughly, how much code, how many lines of text do you think it is?
So far, I have about 80 documents that
Hey,
are
okay, that's not
like,
that many.
that's like articles. But this is the other thing as well. It's like not taking, but using other people's knowledge and what they wrote about it and putting that in there as well to help give a more formed answer. So yes, yes, I want to put in the legal documents, but also legal documents are not wrote how people understand them. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
papers,
definitely.
there's PDFs, there's websites. Putting all of that into a context that I can use for myself to make sure um what I'm getting knowledge on at this stage is more understandable, but also then to step it further and think about actually how can this be used for customers as well, as in like helping them understand the regulations and all these things, because that's really complicated. And I should caveat that by saying, like, this is only a temporary step, and I say a temporary step because if I actually ever build this into a company, everything that we will provide, we will have lawyers back it to make sure it's 100% correct and legal,
Yeah, because you don't
because
want to hallucinate or to read, old,
liability.
or if something, or if the laws have changed and some of
Mhm.
the blogs or
Context is
docs or
out of
whatever you
date.
put in are like a year old, and it's just different now.
Exactly. And for example, um, AI could so easily hallucinate on GDPR because different countries have slightly different versions of the regulation. And it could quite easily hallucinate between merging UK with Germany that have slightly different laws around GDPR. So it's
Right.
like it is different as well. Or like, say, for example, California CCPA versus Utah's versus
Yeah,
Delaware.
this
You
is
know
what
what
we
I
were talking
mean?
about last time because you had in your dev tool a couple of those in there.
Options. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if you are able to actually bake all that into your tool, that's one of the things that would really give it a lot of value for people.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And something I think I can 100% do that I think would be really powerful is if the provider, the host, could tell the app where the user is provide different options for the cookie banner. So basically, if the hosting provider could give a header that was like, yeah, in California, be like, oh baby, you're being locked down. But if they're like, they're in you know, I don't know, Africa, they're in Egypt, be like, they have no privacy laws. Do nothing.
Can you use like
you know
the
what I mean?
IP address to basically kind of roughly figure out someone's like granted they're not
So-
using like a VPN, you know?
Yeah, so you could do it that way where the front end would call an IP service, then return the location.
Mhm.
Or you could do it where if someone uses something like Vercel or Cloudflare that gives the headers of where they are, just passing that through. So some providers already give the headers to the users. Google, AWS, Vercel, Cloudflare, they will actually pass the headers down if you ask for them. But yeah, it's one of them things where there's multiple methods. But I think the key here is trying to say the golden thing we want to do is keep the interface at 5 lines of code for as long as possible. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
To not even say, I want to worry about GDPR or CCPA or whatever, and just say, you trust us to do the right thing in each legality. So if someone comes from X or Y, we know what to do. Because I think the more you start customizing that compliance level, the more you need to know. And it starts getting, and then you start getting to your foot guns of GDPR and CCPA, and you know what I mean? When if you can keep it as pure as far, then that simple component, and then say you pick all the right things, I think that's the key to actually really taking off in this area and saying to developers, we know you need this, but you've been putting it off because you don't want to know about this stuff. So you remain blissfully ignorant. Put these 5 lines of code in and call it a day. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know, there's so much that has gone on so far, and it's really, really exciting. But over the next week, I should be able to polish up the components, get them all working right, and then I will not even go for a beta. It's currently in beta. It's just soft called a beta. I would just put the 1.0.0 out there and say, you know, it's ready to go. It's usable in all states, and we'll go from there. So super, super exciting. A lot has changed in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, let me know once it's official, and I'll tell people about it.
Yeah, 100%. I guess the only last thing to say is like, you know, anybody watching or anyone wants to talk to me about it or beta test or have conversations about it, like, you know, please do. You can reach out to me on literally any platform. It's still just me working on it, and it might always just be me working on it. We'll see, but it's really exciting no matter what, and we'll see where it goes.
Just in case people need it, you can find you at x.com/Chris.
Or x.com/Koroflow. And you can follow the Twitter, and yeah, super, super interesting. I'd love to hear people's opinions on it and everything altogether. Like, yeah, I'm super excited about where this is going.
Yeah, man,
a lot of things.
A lot of great work here, and super cool. I'm excited. It's cool to get to see kind of thought process and how you're building it out. And
it's basically a scattergun. It's like how I kind of imagine it in my head, and I think I got a lot more refined over the years, but it's a bit like a shotgun. You know, when I started Everfund, it was like a shotgun, but the spread was still super massive. I think over time I've managed to tighten that, but it's still a shotgun. It still like spreads across the board, and it's like have you thought about this? And it's like, yes, I've got 50% in that direction, and thought, this is not going as easy as I want it to. I'm going to drop this for now and go do something else. And we see that with like the Sandpack example. It's super cool that it works in the website. It just wasn't getting that really quick implementation. And that's what I've really been focusing on over the last few weeks, is trying to do the things that are complicated and hard, but also easy and simple, and trying to work out what needs to actually be done that's complicated and hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything that doesn't need to be done that's complicated and hard, moving that to another day. You know what I mean? Instead of just saying like, why are you spending so much time on something that's really hard? And you know, the Sandpack example, if it worked, it would be great. But it's also down to that. It's like, if I spent a week trying to fix that to get the perfect implementation, at the end of the day, people are just going to copy and paste it into their app. So does it really need to render on the website? It would be nice if it could, but also they're just going to copy and paste it into their app. You know what I mean? So it's finding that balance. And I think that's a really hard skill that I've refined a lot on in the last founder journey, you can say. So,
you know, I mean, it's all about prioritization, because you're just one dude with, you know, only so many hours in the day.
Yes. And I think what I've managed to achieve so far in 2 weeks, you know, the new website, the docs, the actual components. Not that I want to flex or anything, but I have a lot of appreciation for like what Clerk had built out. You know, they spent years making their first version, and then they said like, we're now going to make these new Clerk elements, and they had already tons of components. You know, the sign in, the login, the drop down, you know what I mean? I've just been doing that for 2 components, and I felt like I'm hitting their level of quality, and I feel really proud about that. But also massive amount of respect, because actually having this as an API infrastructure is super, super complicated. And there's somebody called I'll shout it out here, Hybrid Alex. He currently works on it at Clerk, and yeah, you know, looking through their code, understanding how they've done things, super interesting. I have different implementations for like the theming engine and stuff, but just seeing how they did it to take aspect and reference, I think is really cool.
That's hybrid_Alex if you want to find them on X. Or
yeah, he builds out he's on the Clerk team currently, and to give you the Clerk elements. So these are Clerk ones. So obviously that's Clerk's. Actually, it's this one you want. That's Clerk's page. And obviously, big inspiration, but massive amount of work to achieve. But I think we're almost there. Just need to whack-a-mole with tests, and I never thought I'd say that. I've never been a person that's like, you know what? Now is the time for tests. But with this,
if you're building a library, you just have to. You can't get away from it.
Sooner or later, things are gonna break or not work as expected. And debugging it is hard to some extent.
Well, maybe once you get more tests written, you can come back again. We can take a look at that, or whatever you end up building next, or once you just kind of get the whole API surface figured out.
Yeah,
it seems like things are still kind of in flux, but you're mostly there.
Yeah, and you know, I have a lot of respect for people that spend a lot of time thinking about interfaces before actually writing them. And like sometimes I feel like, as we was having a discussion about the imports, It's like you could sit there and really think about it, or you can just implement it and see if it's right. And that's what this beta period that it's currently in is that just breaking it, changing it, you know. I wouldn't expect anyone to implement it while it's in these breaking betas, but that's why, you know, we're breaking it fast, moving it, polishing it, and then when I feel confident, that's when we put out like the 1.0 and say, everyone, this is the brand new level for cookie banners across any React projects. I will need to make sure it works in Astro before launching it though. That's a massive like.
Yeah, I can help you with that. I do a decent.
It
Astro
should.
is the thing I
It should
mainly
just
use.
work. It should just work, right? It's just a React component.
Yeah, but once you start putting React components on like an Astro page, then you just end up stuff can go weird, especially if you have like CSS involved, you know. So I can see how you'd hit weird random edge cases.
So what you're saying is I need to build a non-React version of my elements package.
I mean, it kind of depends, you know. I think that if you just kind of lean into the React, then you mostly just gonna have to figure out how to get it to work with Astro. And that's more so how do you have like an Astro project that is setting up the JSX in a way where nothing weird is gonna happen.
Yeah, and like I thought about using Solid and all these things, but I thought, you know, I don't want to be like obtuse when I say this, but whilst every other framework is doing some really cool and important things, React is still the baseline by a massive margin. And it's like it's already been hard enough building it out in React. And no, I don't think it would have been any easier in other frameworks as well, because what I'm doing is not really like framework specific. I would like to see, once I have it to a point where I'm happy with it, being like, actually, let's give mitosis another look, you know, because you're looking at like a finished JSX DOM tree instead of trying to build it out as you're trying to do it. You know what I mean? Be like trying to replicate the JSX DOM tree, the hook structure in mitosis, and seeing if it actually renders out to the other frameworks or Solid, for example. But that's another thing for another day, not today.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we can start wrapping it up. This is super fun, man. Thank you for sharing all of this, and hopefully we can get you back on next time you have another huge code dump to share.
Yeah, maybe it's in another 2 weeks.
Maybe it seems like you're moving fast. So
exactly. Well, there's no time like the present, and
right. Seize the moment.
The most important thing. Exactly. Awesome. So let's wrap it up, and we'll catch everyone soon.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you next time.